All right, we are back once again. Look who joined us this week. She's all better, and she's managed to come back and talk some bad bats with us. You know what? It's just my stuff's messed up right now, Bailey. I got to get this right. You belong up there, ma'am, because you're way more important than I am. But with that, you guys, Brandon, Bailey, let's get into this. All right, welcome to another Saturday episode of the Bad Batch Breakdown with Brandon and Bailey. We're going to start off like we always do with a couple of administrative functions, as I used to call them back when I was a working man. But first off, I'd like to start off with saying, hey, Bailey, how are you doing?
I am doing much better this week than last week. And you guys watching the show last week, like I checked in intermittently while you guys were live, and then I watched it on the rewind. And I just want to say to everyone who watches the show and we're commenting and giving their well wishes, thank you so much. It means a lot that, like, you guys don't even know me personally, and yet you care enough to send, a message or anything like that. So it really warmed my heart. It's amazing how sometimes people on the internet treat you better than the people around you. But I was very flattered, and you guys did amazing. And I couldn't have been more impressed. So thank you guys.
Well, good. I was glad you checked in and made sure Brandon and I were behaving and doing things right without you here. So the show didn't go off the rails. But from the bottom of my heart, it's good to see you again. I'm glad you're doing a lot better. I hope you continue to get better. But it's just, Brandon will agree with me. We had a blast last week because I got to play a lot more, but it's just not the same without you, Bailey. So welcome back.
No, it was great. It was very entertaining to watch.
It was
just like, oh, good, they're having fun.
I'm going to take that as a compliment, Brandon. We're going to move on.
I'm so glad we're having fun.
Nice. Brandon, how are you doing, sir? It's always good to see you as well. You know that.
Doing well. Can't complain.
Okay. Well, as we've discussed previously, even if you did complain, probably nobody would care these days, right? So, yeah. All right. Let's acknowledge some people we got in the chat. This is an interesting one. I wonder if that's the real James Hetfield. What do you guys think? That came in at about noon today. Either way, James. Yeah. Ride the lightning, bro. I'm down. If you're still here, it's good to see you, James. Thanks for stopping by, at least making a comment. There's G-Force.
Hey, G-Force.
And you guys know, chat legend Gilster's in the house, always. And one of my other favorites, J Squared.
Hey, John Joker.
Somebody's got to keep it alive.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to keep it alive, right?
Really black.
Josh, I know you're probably at work, so good to see you, man. And this is my favorite. This is why I love Linda so much, because she pops in. She's like, hey, Paul. Oh, and by the way, Bailey and Brandon.
Hey, Linda.
Oh man, so going on down, yeah. So everybody got everybody saying hi to everybody. And at the risk of wearing this out, you guys, I say this a lot, but man, it's just the weeks are going by. Can you believe we're on episode 8 already, you guys? It's just amazing.
No.
And my spirits are a lot. I'm in a lot better spirits the last couple of episodes, and we'll get into that. So for a while there, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this show anymore. I could just talk to you guys offline, but things are starting to get better. But as always, we're going to start off with some comments, or at least a comment that was put on the video where Brandon and I actually talked about that, Bailey. So, and that's from Matt's collection again. He used to be Matt C, but I love him because he'll go through and watch us on the rewind, and then he drops comments as things pop into his head. So I'm actually forced to pick one for us to talk about. Otherwise, we would just talk about Matt's comments all episode. And he says, thanks for the kind words, Paul. Greatly appreciated. An excellent episode talking about the last one. My son was so excited to see Rex show up. We got a decent payoff, just like we said, Brandon, right? I mean, hint payoff. It was great. I like how we went after the squad for treason, not for following Order 66 was another one that, let's be honest, caught us a little off guard, but was cool. Thinking of the timeline, I bet the sisters did contact Ahsoka at some point, and she hooked him up with Rex. Since we're not too far removed from the end of the Clone Wars Season 7, Ahsoka is most likely also laying low. I doubt Vader has even been to the place where she buried Jesse and left her lightsaber. Because of that, I don't mind all the confusion that's going on in the Star Wars universe at this point. I think at the end of the day, we're still happy with everything we're getting at the base level. For the record, I've thrown out my crystal ball because my predictions have been way off. Brandon and I talked a little bit about that. I brought up the predictions thing. Bailey, you saw it, and I'm like, man, we get into trouble every week with this, but let's throw them out there and see what we got. So.
Mm-hmm.
And Brandon, he had the same thought about Rex's introduction. It was almost like Tolkien wrote those scenes, right?
Yep.
No emotion whatsoever.
Yeah. It was just, well, and then we talked about the hood reveals that I love so much. And he said, get well soon, Bailey. So it's good to hear from Matt as always. So with this, Brandon, we're going to break from tradition a little bit, in as much as Bailey wasn't here last time, and we are going to start off with her, and then I'm going to let you come in and hit that on the retort, if you know what I'm saying, when she's wrong about something. What do you think, brother? Sure. Sound good? Okay. So Bailey, let's just start right in. You know how we do here. Overall impressions, and what you thought of the episode, and start us off on the plot and go.
It was good. I have my feelings for it are pretty much the same as last week's. I like that we're keeping that momentum, and there's stuff going on. I still think things are still going just a tad too slow, but like I will take this episode and last week's episode over the 4 we got before. So I thought it was good. It picked up immediately after the previous episode, which I like. It wasn't like there was no fooling around. And that was my major gripe with the side quest ones. It's like there was a lot of fooling around, I think, but this was like right off the bat, Crosshair, and thankfully we got to see Crosshair and what the Empire's doing again. They're going straight for the Bad Batch, and things are just kicking off from there. So I thought it was good. This is exactly what I've been wanting to see. Is like you should be able to not go at breakneck speed, but it's progressing, and I'm so grateful for that. So yeah, I thought it was a decent episode.
Perfect. Brandon, piggybacking on that, what Bailey just said, let's get your overall impressions. And if you wouldn't mind kind of incorporating in what Left Coast has just said down there and what your thoughts on that might be.
I thought it was a very good episode. I still won't. The week before was still so good that I won't say that. I can't say that this one was better. It was good to see Crosshair, but it was a really fun episode. And I didn't even write down like a complaint, because everything that I, it's not like I was like, oh yes, I got everything I wanted from this episode, but it was, some of the Easter eggs were very, very good. And, seeing Crosshair and then another character that popped up, I almost lost it. But
yeah.
We're going to save that for last. Yeah. The last 3 weeks, I would say, have been the most enjoyable, other than the first 2 episodes, easily. And even these last 3 episodes, I would say were better than, like, last week's episode. I would say was the best episode. But no, this is up there. Every character kind of had something to do in this episode, where it wasn't like, well, this week we're going to use this character because he's good at this certain thing. It was like each one had a certain thing to do. So
yeah, I felt like I got that impression. It was a much more even distribution, and I like what Josh says, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on that in a minute. But it was a fantastic episode, and you and I predicted this, and I know Bailey in the background last week, you did too. We knew it was going to be an intense episode. We're going to get a lot more action, and things were going to start closing in around him, and I'll be dogged at that, and exactly what happened. So I like how he calls him Darth Crosshairs. Now that he's everybody gets all crispied up in this in the Star Wars universe. So we'll see. Oh, and then this is for you, Brandon. Guess we're going to get a third Black Series fig now that he's all burned up. And Brandon's got an opinion on that. He's going to keep to himself, clearly. So real quick, Blitz, I appreciate you watching us from work. Thank you very much. And then there's JT.
Hi, JT.
Good to see you back, Bailey. Oh, check this out. Matt, were your ears burning, sir? We were just talking about you in a good way. So I know that our stream, unfortunately, coincides with some family matters that Matt likes to take care of during this time span, so he can't really make it on a regular basis. So even if you were able to drop by very briefly, Matt, it's good to see you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So we'll start off with kind of like some plot points and stuff like that. This one, I wasn't sure where they were going at first, but we go right back to Camino, Bailey, and we get an idea pretty quickly what's going on and where we're going. So can you talk a little bit about that for us, please? What's going on here and what happened?
Yeah. So basically, so the last week's episode ended with some from the Scrappers Guild caught the Bad Batch and they alerted the Empire, and so the episode starts pretty just like that, where Crosshair is like, "Yep, they're in Braca." They let whoever's in charge up there, like, we're going to Braca to get the Bad Batch, but at the same time, the Kaminoans are more concerned with getting Omega back, and we don't know what they mean by that until later down the road. But the episode just immediately starts. All right, Crosshair is going to get his dudes. They're going to go to Braca and they're going to apprehend the Bad Batch, which is nice because it's like finally we're seeing these characters again.
Agree. Brandon, I'd like to get your opinion on that, but we're going to go to the next picture here that was part of that, because I know this is a little bit more important to you because you'd mentioned Rampart. Can you give us an idea of how you felt they started this episode and then what you kind of saw going on between the Kaminoans and Rampart here?
I was glad to see it because, I mean, obviously they're giving Rampart a Black Series figure, and I was like, well, why are they giving it to this dude? But I think we've got even more to see from him, especially since he was given the reins of the whole War Mantle stuff. But because Tarkin is busy doing other things. So I thought it was really good because he basically tells them, like, you're not just going to tell us what we need to know about, like, these clones and the cloning with the Elite Squad troops, but, like, we want to know everything that you're doing, basically. Mm-hmm. And as you know, that makes me think about them finding out about cloning, and that the Empire is looking into cloning more. So it knowing where the cloning fits in with the timeline and the story with Palpatine, it's like how deep are we going to go into this with the Empire learning about this cloning? So that was just my big thought. But I was glad to see that they actually showed that the Empire was like, we need to find the Bad Batch and track them down. And
right.
To me right now, it seems like they want to dispatch them because they or dispose of them because it's soldiers that aren't following the orders.
Right, and that and from a real world military perspective, that could be a cancer if you get units that aren't following orders. That can spread. So we got another answer this episode too, Bailey, and I was excited to hear, like, we pretty much predicted what had happened and why, but we know that it's now the Kaminoans that are hiring the bounty hunters. Did that catch you off guard, or what'd you think about that?
No, if anything, I'm kind of glad that they revisited that, because we've been a couple episodes without seeing Fennec Shand again. So I was starting to think, like, okay, are we just done with the whole bounty hunter thing? Because I don't know, they made Fennec seem like such a big threat, and then they don't touch on it for a couple episodes. So, and I was half expecting to see her again in this episode. So I thought, oh, she's just going to be the consistent, like, antagonist, kind of like in Mandalorian, where it was like Moff Gideon, but that ended up not being the case. So no, I'm glad that they picked up on that, because it was just like, oh, is that what they're doing? They're just dropping little things and then we don't hear about it again. So yeah, but for what purpose, why they want Omega so bad is still left unanswered. Like, we know that they want her back, but we don't know why.
Yeah, I thought that was really well done. They left an air of anticipation for me, at least. Really quick, before we get to you there, Brandon, I just want to say hi to Christian. This Luke Paul thing, if you've watched Reynolds reviews, you'll get that joke. Luke just imitated me on his video today. And then let's see here. And then there is
hey, Sean.
Yeah, fellow desert dweller suffering through temperatures right now. And by the way, The boys and I love this episode. Yeah, absolutely, Matt. This was much better than the fare we've been getting. But Brandon, we had speculated who may have been hiring the bounty hunters the whole time, especially Fennec Shand, and then something we're going to talk about in the future. Turns out it was the Kaminoans. Did that surprise you? And why do you think they're using bounty hunters?
No, and I'm glad that that's what they did, and it makes sense that they would go outside of the new empire that has formed to help get them back, because they want to keep Omega away from the empire essentially too. They're like, the empire doesn't know what we've got going on here, and I think there's still some mystery going on that even we're going to find out about when it comes to that stuff, because we don't know what who Omega really is with that. So I was glad, and I was trying to figure out, did one bounty hunter get hired and then other bounty hunters hear about this? So similar to the War of the Bounty Hunters, which is the bounty hunters going after Han Solo after Boba has him in carbonite. I'm hoping we're going to see a couple more bounty hunters than just
Everybody knows, but it's all good. I thought the one interesting thing I'll point out with those two pictures I just showed you guys is it's clear here that the Empire and the Kaminoans are not on the same sheet of music, because the Kaminoans are desperately trying to get as much of the Bad Batch, especially Omega, back as they can. And Rampart was like, kill them all, let God sort them out, kind of like almost like James Hetfield's song. So yeah, you guys got the reference. What? Taylor's in the house tonight. I danced last episode. I won't do it again this episode. So, but and so that underlying tension, I think, was interesting in that scene for me. So now the other good news is that we're not jumping from planet to planet like maniacs, even though had my theory come true last time, Brandon, where I was like, all they could have done was add in like a third party who was going to have to kick them off of Braca soon, which they didn't. And now I got to walk that back a little bit, because we start off this episode with a little bit of familiar surroundings. Bailey, we're right back on Braca. And we've got this exchange between who we're calling Uncle Wrecker at this point and Omega. Tell me what you thought about them still being on Braca and what you got out of this scene.
I mean, when I saw that we were still on Braca, I'm not going to lie, the Jedi Fallen Order part of me was hoping to see things, but of course that doesn't happen. But yeah, it seems like that Wrecker is like kind of Omega's go-to. I know we talked quite a bit about how we think that she's going to bond with all of them. And in the beginning, they made it seem like Hunter was going to be like her person. But now it's becoming, Wrecker's getting a lot of screen time with Omega. So it's like, okay, I guess this is like her person. And so it was nice. I mean, because like the last episode was, more on a serious note where Omega thought she was going to lose Wrecker because of, how things went south with the chip. And this was just kind of a, just this funny, like just older brother, uncle messing with the kid, teaching her how to disarm like basically a bomb, but it ends up being a smoke bomb. So yeah, it was just a little laugh, I think, before, Crosshair starts showing up and ruining everyone's day. So yeah, I think Wrecker is Omega's person.
Brandon, be honest. Did you think he was crazy enough to be actually using real explosives with her?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, sorry, I'm not nuts. I was like, yeah, he did it. He did it.
It was really funny because the first thing I wrote was, "Oh, look, a bomb. I wonder where this is going to go. Like, I wonder how we're going to see this in the rest of the episode."
Right.
But I thought it was pretty funny that it was a smoke bomb, and that he was like, "You think I'd let you like train on a real bomb?" It was like, well, yeah.
Because all of us thought that, so why not? Right? Yeah. Are you surprised by of all the options that Wrecker seems to be getting most of the screen time with Omega, Bailey?
Yes. Yes, I am actually, because I thought he was. I mean, he's still pretty tropey in who he is, but I just thought he was just going to be like the muscle guy and whatnot. again, like, this is just, you know, me wanting to see more of our regular clones with more interaction, but I was just really hoping that it might have been either Hunter or, because it seems so obvious in the beginning, or Echo, just about how different he is, and Omega's kind of different too, in a way. So I was thinking that maybe they were the ones to bond. So no, I'm surprised, and I don't know if this is a choice on the creative team, because with each episode, I'm starting to think, yeah, I think they definitely made this for like a younger audience. So I don't know if they chose him because he's the funny one. Mm-hmm. But I am surprised that he is the one that's being chosen to be the her go-to.
Brandon, how about you? Is Wrecker as the choice for her mentor, older brother, father figure? Is that surprising you, or do you see it coming?
You know, it really doesn't surprise me. I have an 11-year-old niece, and it seems like when it comes to a kid making a connection with a group of people, the one that is the most childlike, that's as far as we're going to, you know,
right, yeah.
dive into that, because
go with that,
I'm going to be like, well, damn. But
yeah.
it does make sense to me, because she's going to try to connect to the one that's, you know, most kid-like and you know, responds to things in a similar way to her. Like, is Wrecker like big and strong and can get the job done? Yes, but let's be honest, he's not the brightest.
He's not the most sophisticated of fellows, right? Yeah.
So no, it doesn't. And I'm actually glad that they're doing this with him, because I was worried that I was really not going to like this character and that he was going to annoy me over time. But honestly, the two of them are such a good pair that, and they are doing a really good job with it, and I'm glad to see that.
You know, it's shocking to me too, because I mentioned this last episode. You know, the previous episodes to last episode, I was ready to choke that little kid, and I was so worried that Wrecker was just going to be this one-dimensional break it trope. And the two characters I'm most interested in right now in the Bad Batch themselves, or I think that they've developed, happen to be these two. So you know, it's a little bit of a shock, the arc we've seen there. Yeah. So with that, Bailey. We knew this was coming. Scrappers Guild finds him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we get a little bit of comedy. You know, with Wrecker being dragged behind the skiff and everything like that. And funnily enough, he didn't hit his head this time, which was amazing to me.
Well, no, because I think I probably would lose it if Wrecker has a headache episode again.
Yeah, they beat that one to death for sure. As Brandon put it, yeah, they beat us in the head until our chips activated. For God's sakes, So. But then they decide, hey, you know what? Let's scavenge for on one of these ships so we can get some money to pay Sid back. And so we're wandering through the Venator, and we got lots of good looks at stuff. Do you want to talk about that? What you thought about all that stuff?
Yeah, I have to say it's kind of haunting, them going through these ships that we know from the Clone Wars. These were where the Jedi were traveling with their crew. So, and I love the Jedi, guys, and I love the Jedi and clones. Like, that is like my cup of tea. So it is just, it's so haunting to see. And I'm pretty sure this is probably the ship that Cal and his master were on before they crashed into Braca. But it is.
Why do you think that? Did you see something?
No, because like if you play the game, that's how the game starts. Is Cal and his master are right above Braca when Order 66 happens. So it would make sense. So that's just me, logically speaking, I think that would make sense for that ship to go down if they're already at that planet. So it's interesting for them to go down these hallways, and you're seeing they're grabbing like these those proton torpedo looking things, and it's just so weird. It's like going through a haunted house almost, where it's like so much has happened on these ships, and they're just kind of picking what's left because they have to. I mean, that's just kind of how life is right now, is you're scavenging, because the Empire doesn't really give you much of a choice. But yeah, it's like a weird nostalgic feeling when they're going through those ships and when they're on the bridge, and it's like you're just thinking like so much has happened like on these ships, and all those people are gone. And honestly, I was kind of hoping that when Omega was asking Tag what was war like, that we would have that that conversation of like, yeah, something really terrible has happened. things are, so yeah, it's, I think it's smart. It makes sense why they're scavenging. This is the place to do it. But the part of me that just loves a Jedi, it hurts a little bit when they're going through that. And it's like, yep, this is bad.
Yeah, and I want you to remember that you just said that, because there's something that I want to talk about when we get upstairs, in addition to what we mentioned earlier. But Brandon, to you, you guys are great connoisseurs of the Clone Wars, and you guys were invested in most of the series, and I think that's fair to say. And then we get to this, and we're just wandering through the remnants of things that you two grew up with. What did you think about that, man?
This is what I love about this show, and this is what I was hoping to see more of it, especially with them being on the planet where Jedi Fallen Order starts. And there are parts in the game where you're on a Venator and you're exploring some of the hallways, and Revenge of the Sith and stuff like that. And I'll talk a little bit later about an Easter egg from Revenge of the Sith, but everything about this era is so close to what I grew up watching. So it all kind of hits me right in the chest when they're, when they're walking through the hallways and they're in the bridge and stuff like that. And it was, it's always pretty like fun to watch these episodes. And I must say that each week, these Easter eggs and the little things that they have going on are so good that even if I didn't like the story, I would still be watching it for that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And I have to remember, and I'm not talking down to you guys in any fashion, that you guys are a lot younger than me, because when stuff from Rogue One, which is, right about the end, I was in my, 40s, but especially when they make references back to A New Hope and stuff, I get giddy, and I have to forget that, or I forget sometimes that this Clone Wars throwback stuff for you guys, you get that same feeling. You're like, that's a Venator, that's the Jedi ship and everything like that. So, I got a kick out of it as well. And I have a question, Bailey, I'll ask you to answer this first, and then Brandon, you. The last two episodes, I believe, let me do it this way. How do you feel that they've gone towards drawing us in emotionally and getting some depth into these characters in the last 2 to 3 episodes, Bailey? How are they doing now?
I don't know if it's helped with developing so much the Bad Batch as much, but I think it definitely hits those emotional strings of just like, we are in a Jedi ship, and with Rex, you can tell he's like he cannot mention Ahsoka. Like, we know he's struggling. Like, we know he has seen some stuff and he's going through a hard time. And so it's this, oddly enough, and I feel like that's kind of been how things have been for me when it comes to the show, is the things happening around the Bad Batch hit me harder than the Bad Batch themselves. It's what's happening around them. And, granted, like, the Bad Batch, it's in their point of view, so they don't, they're not as close to the Jedi. They're not as close as the other clones. Like, they're pretty removed by all this tragedy that's happening from them. But for people like us, the viewers who know everything, it's everything else happening around them that's hitting me more than themselves. I feel like each episode, like, we're getting like pieces of character development with the Bad Batch, but I don't know, for me, it's like seeing Rex and seeing him struggle to put on a professional face and like not reveal too much, and them going in these ships, which I'm sure for Rex hits him a lot harder than us, because that was his life, and and him saying like, well, I've never been on this end of it, and he can't say who helped him. So it's stuff like that hits me more than what's going on with the Bad Batch, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And really quick, before we go over to you, Brandon, G-Force does have a point. Record did bang his head. They wanted to show you his get after the chipper. It looked like he banged everything on that skiff to me. So yeah, that's a good point, G-Force. But to the point we were just making, Brandon, about character development and bringing us in more emotionally, what are your thoughts on that, and especially these last 2 episodes? And
so I'll just kind of start it off by saying the conversation that happens in this episode that has kind of the last 2 episodes have kind of led up to this conversation, and it was actually really nice. And it's when Echo and Hunter are talking, and they were saying like, well, if we went with Rex, we wouldn't have to be doing these missions to pay off Sid.
Right.
And he was like, why didn't we just go with Rex? And he's like, we're on a different path. And Hunter is saying, because they're trying to protect Omega, and then Echo hits him back with we're soldiers. What other path is there?
Right.
And it's the last couple episodes with Rex sitting there and looking at his helmet and looking at, his brothers and thinking about all the brothers that he could have saved. And like, it's pretty rough stuff. Yeah. It's pretty, it's pretty hard. Sometimes it's hard to watch too. And like, cause you know that the inspiration from this is, real life when it comes to that kind of stuff. And, it's Star Wars and it's make believe, but that comes from a different place. And that's where that hits me too. And I think that they are doing a great job. And I think the last 2 or 3 episodes, especially, even though we didn't have some of the emotional connection parts where, Rex and Echo had, basically nothing. Like, hey, what's up, dude? I still think that they have some of these moments where like a little conversation like that makes the last, couple episodes totally worth it.
Right. And I mentioned that last week. I don't know if it's because these episodes are valedictorians of summer school or things are just getting better. Either way, I was a little bit more invested. I'll take it. Really quick, Left Coast is leading a revolt in the comments. Hopefully Kenner Hammerhead is back. And then David, yeah. Whoops, David. I love seeing Kenner Hammerhead last week. And then we got Sean Solo. Yes, please. I'll take a version of Harris. Oh man, like I said, I hope they just make this Black Series figure for you guys so we can get it. So
we can stop hearing about it.
Yes. You go, Left Coast. You go. Lead your revolution, man. I love it. So they're busy scavenging and doing everything, and they send Tech upstairs to the bridge to see if he can get the power turned on and work on some stuff. And he summons Omega. I said Omega the entire last episode. Brandon, did you catch that?
I mean, it's interchangeable at this point.
I watched pieces of it and I was like, I'm saying Omega, like I'm Kiwi. But anyway, they asked for Omega upstairs, and there I go again. And she comes upstairs and she's talking to Tech, and this goes right into what we mentioned it briefly earlier. But we're going to lead off this time with you, Brandon. She asked about the Clone Wars, and tell us what happens and what you thought of that.
It was kind of disappointing because Omega asked him, she's looking at the destruction, everything like that, and she's getting the feeling because obviously she can, I don't know if we're still she's very perceptive to people's feelings, like the way that she looked at Rex the last episode and just kind of looked in his eyes and then was like, you're old. I can tell because of the lines in your face, but like it was like she could see everything that he's kind of gone through. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame that it wasn't a different member of the Bad Batch sitting there and she asked them the question, because it gets a very canned, it was a series of missions that,
a series of missions that were led to the ratification of you just gave her some dictionary answer.
And she's like, but no, what was it like?
Yeah.
And it's too bad, because I think that could have been a very interesting conversation if it had been Echo, because he has it from 2 different perspectives. Like, he could talk about the torture of war, and he could talk about his literal torture. So I think there was a wasted opportunity there, but I think we will get something like that in the future. I honestly still believe that I think this was their attempt to try to have a touching moment between Omega and Tech, and it's just not going to happen. Now we can just be like, yeah, it's fine.
Well, let me ask you this question then, ma'am. I know you saw this scene, and I know what was going through your head because we've known each other long enough now. Was this bad writing, or was this written this way on purpose because there's something wrong with Tech that he just doesn't have the kind of emotions or the ability to express that? What do you think's going on here?
I honestly don't know what they were thinking of pairing Tech and Omega together to have that conversation. I am 100% with Brandon, and I've seen a little bit in the chat too, where I think that should have been an Echo moment, 1,000% right there. And that's kind of, I'm still having that frustration of this Echo character is being sidelined so hard. And this character is experiencing a lot in these last few episodes that would immediately trigger that PTSD back in the war. Like, he's having to shoot his own brothers, yada, yada, yada. And we're not seeing his reactions or his feelings, or nobody's asking, so I honestly can't say why they chose Tech of all people to have that conversation. When that scene happened and Omega asked that question, I was like, oh, here we go. This is something that can immediately grab my attention, because it's like, that was another thing that kind of bothered me a little bit in the show. It's like, nobody's talking about what happened. Like, nobody's had that conversation of, we just went through this 3-year-long horrific war. They saw Jedi die before their very eyes. These people that they, felt were trustworthy, and so much has happened, and nobody's having that conversation. So it's like, when Omega brought that up, I was like, we are finally going to have that conversation, and it didn't. I'm just, with each episode, Tech is actually bothering me the most out of all of them. Like, when I went into the show, I thought Wrecker was going to be the one but Tech bothers me because there is just no emotion with this character. He is literally there to give instructions and to spout, I can't even say wisdom. It's literally directions that he's telling them. And Omega's trying to have a conversation with him, and he's just like, like, it's like nothing. And anyone who's ever gone to war or has had any military experience, I don't think they would describe it that way, as, oh, it's just one mission after another. It's like, no, that would be a much wider conversation. Of course, probably dumb, you would adjust your wording around like a child, but it's like, I think it's not the best choice. I don't know what's going through these people's heads when they're making these decisions. I'm still waiting to see why it was so important to rescue Echo, because honestly, I hurt for this character, because it's like, he was tortured, he was rescued, it was very elaborate. They spent multiple episodes on this, and he's basically no different than R2-D2. And this is, out of all of them, he would be the guy that would be struggling the most with what's going on. This would be the guy that knows a lot. And him having like no conversation with Rex drove me crazy in the last one, because it's like, I just don't understand. I don't understand why we have Echo here when he's literally just being used when it's convenient. And if we were going to have that conversation about what war was like, that would have been the perfect bonding moment for Echo and Omega, especially since Omega is so perceptive, and, maybe that would have been therapeutic for Echo as well. So I don't know. I think it was, I don't know what they were going for. Maybe it's like Brandon said, it's to show us that Tech literally he has no emotional intelligence. But I just think that was not the time to do that.
Fair enough. Yeah, because I struggled is a strong word, but you see a lot of comments, people talking about maybe he's got, low-grade PTSD. My perception was that that's not the case. I think they're writing the character so that he literally is like a biometric droid, for lack of a better way to put it. He's just not capable. Yeah. And then, of course, after everything that they've been through, this is the only part of this episode that upset me. They've gone through war. They've been shot at. They've been ambushed, ostensibly. All these things. The proximity light goes off, and he jumps up and goes, it's nothing.
Yeah.
What? Why? Look out the window, and sure enough, what do we get, Brandon?
The Empire.
Yeah.
He's so smart.
Yeah. Right. I love how Omega's like,
yeah, that's like
it's broken.
Right. Is he smart or not? Somebody help a brother out here, man. He's killing me. So
are you smarter than a fifth grader? Yep.
Yeah, exactly. He's turned everything on. All the sensors are back on. He doesn't believe the one piece of information he should believe. Yeah. But anyway, we got our long-awaited return of Crosshair. And Brandon, tell me what you thought about the entrance, and talk a little bit about where we go from here.
It was so cool. the way that they had him come off the ship, and it's nice to see that it's not just a full like elite squad. They've got other troopers with them, and they're still CT. Like they're still the designation is still CT.
Right.
The numbers are getting higher when they do the. I think it was like CT 8506 or something like that. But it was interesting that they had a whole kind of squad of regular troopers with them, and we got to see Flamethrower Trooper in action there, ES04.
Mm-hmm.
So it was super cool, and I'm really interested in the Imperial Crosshair, and I wonder, especially after this episode, what they're gonna keep doing with him.
Because things are interesting now.
Yeah.
Did you catch? Because they're using CT numbers, like you said, instead of TK numbers or whatever. I didn't catch it, but I didn't specifically listen. Were any of those troopers that he was talking to? Did they have Jango Fett's voice? Bailey or Brandon, did you catch any of that?
I would think so, just because of how close in proximity we are time-wise. I don't think clones have phased out quite yet, but not that I can remember.
Brandon, did you hear any Jango Fett voices amongst them? And there's a reason I'm asking this.
No, I didn't notice.
Okay, because I didn't either. I got the impression that those four that are, or the three now, because he killed one of them, are that first elite squad that we saw. Because Flamethrower Girl, as Blitz so eloquently put it, is with them. Yeah, and then they've got what looks like, it's hard to tell in the lighting the whole episode, or maybe I wasn't paying attention. Long story short, they're dressed like clones. They've got CT numbers, but I'm hearing different voices. So I thought that was an interesting way to start transitioning here, because I didn't hear any Jango Fett clones with him at all, and they're calling him Commander. And I just want to make sure that you guys didn't catch the Jango Fett voice coming out of any of them either, because I thought that was an interesting thing from a military standpoint for me. So ostensibly, there are regular human recruits with CT numbers in clone armor. As near as we can tell, is that right, Bailey?
I mean, it would make sense, I think, because, the Empire is really not messing around getting things up and running. So I would not be surprised if the moment, Order 66 happened, that they just started enlisting people. So I think I think that's what this show was designed to do, to show us go from clone troopers to phasing into regular people. So maybe we're in that in-between where they're kind of doing half and half right now, because I don't think they've, at least not that I can remember, but I think there's still that argument of, are we going to go with clones or not? Yes or no? So maybe we're seeing like a hybrid of some sort.
Fair enough. And I just wanted to point out something that David, no, hold on. Here we go. I'm sorry, it was Left Coast. Crosshair's got a new revised set of armor now. Could he be the first stormtrooper? No, I'm going to say no, because Crosshair can hit targets. I've seen Crosshair hit targets with his rifle, so unlike the stormtroopers. And I'm allowed to talk bad about my troopers since I love them so much.
I don't know. Talking about the armor quick, I don't know if it's an oversight, because and not everybody's interested in the figures, but so we've got the regular Crosshair one where he's got the little thing shooting off the counterbalance for his gun, and then there was the rumored Imperial version of this figure. Okay. That did end up getting announced, and sadly I didn't get the pre-order of it. But that's I'm not mad. But he also had the counterweight. But in this episode, you see him in this armor, and there's no counterweight. He's just got a regular shoulder on. It would be on his left arm. There's no counterweight on it. So are we? Right. That's where I wonder if we're going to see another set of this armor, and if not, if it's just an oversight on Hasbro while making the figure. But that's it could just be nitpicky. But I don't know if we will see another figure of this. I don't know if they're going to do 3 different figures of Crosshair from one show, but it wouldn't surprise me. But it was cool to see him in his new armor with the green tinted visor, and it was kind of cool. And we've talked about it. It looks like the evolution of a Dark Trooper armor.
Yeah. The one he's wearing right now with the green lenses under there, it's like one squeeze away from being a Death Trooper. Death Trooper. Yeah, absolutely. You and I are in the same. That's Gilster. Child kidnapping to become stormtroopers in 2 years. Yeah. Oh my God. But yeah. And at least 3 of them were female, which we never heard in the original trilogy. And I don't think George Lucas did that on purpose. He just needed people that can fit into this one specific set of armor that he'd made. And the chest was this wide on. I mean, you look at those guys; they're all tiny dudes. So, but yeah, I was glad. And then of course the First Order. I was glad that there was. I hate the word diversity, but there was a lot of different types of people in the stormtrooper outfits in these in this and in the later movies, which was cool. So. Shockingly, the Empire shows up, and then we get a very good, I want to say chase, but they're kind of herding them around in the Venator until we kind of end up on the artillery deck. Bailey, do you want to talk about? I don't have a picture of that, but do you want to talk a little bit about how that battle sequence went and how they acted and what you thought of that?
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting battle because the Bad Batch they're still trying. They don't want to kill Crosshair. They don't want to hurt anybody. So it was more of a kind of like how Ahsoka, when Order 66 happened, she doesn't want to kill anybody, but they want to create some distance so that they can get out of there. Because especially when it comes to protecting Omega, because that was like the first thing Crosshair said is shoot the kid. So they're trying to get. And she, God forbid, that's because Omega said something. She's like, it's okay. Like, they're trying to reach out to him. And he's just like, yeah, just shoot the kid. And then they just, so it wasn't like.
Family-friendly fare,
Exactly. So, it wasn't like the shoot down we got later into this episode. It was just more of we need to get some distance and just try not to kill anybody. And which I thought was good. That was interesting. But my one thing, and I know I'm not the only one that feels this way, is like, and it's interesting that we had this conversation about do we think there are other clones in those trooper, like, are they regular people or not? Because when they were talking about, they were trying to appeal to Crosshair, like, hey, it's because you have this chip in your head and that's why you're acting cuckoo nanas. But like,
someone's a teacher.
Yeah, exactly. But what I don't get is like my biggest problem with this show is how they because I'm thinking like, okay, if we have Crosshair here and he has a squadron of what I assume to be other clones, why aren't they making that appeal to all of them? Like there's definitely been this pattern that I'm seeing that like the Bad Batch is like, if you're not one of them, they don't care. They call the other clones regs, which is not something you heard in the Clone Wars. Like, it was a whole different ball game. Like, clones saw each other as brothers, and they were, like, one and the same. Like, nobody was, like, And I think, from what I can remember in Clone Wars, I don't even think, like, Rex or Cody or any of them treated the Bad Batch any different. But, like, in this show, they're making that distinction of, like, well, these are our people, and you're just regs. And, which I find just weird. And I know it upsets a lot of people actually because they're like, what? Like you spent several years on humanizing these clones only for them to be called regs, and we're not going to try to help those guys out, but we're gonna so that was like the only thing. But eventually they create distance and they're able to oh gosh, I don't even know what you would basically how they. Brandon wants to jump in, like how they made Crosshair crispy in the end. Like,
oh, well, I wanted to ask, right. When we go to Brandon really fast, I thought this was something that we hadn't seen before because they go to the artillery deck because they know that the ship is dilapidated. Brandon, talk about that specific decision, what you thought about that creativity, and if you wanted to add to Bailey's point, and then let's move into what happens to Crosshair.
Yeah, and it was basically them thinking of all the different ways to escape a Venator. They were looking for an open exit to get out that Crosshair might not think about. But as you see, he very intelligent, very good at, trapping and herding into a space. and he knew Tech's methods,
right.
and was able to, you know, predict what he was going to do with that. So I don't think it initially dawned on them that they were going to use the cannons, but they go down in this area, which we see in Revenge of the Sith, which is the Easter egg that I'm going to talk about. They end up charging the cannons and blasting it, and it's the same exact sound effect that opening battle over Coruscant, where the cannons are firing and they're like two pirate ships going right next to each other, and they're just shooting each other up. It was really cool, and when they had that sound effect, I was smiling, and I was like, yeah, here we go. But they use that because, I mean, obviously the Venator is broken down over time, so they use the blast from the cannon because those things fire and they kick back. Mm-hmm. The torpedoes that they shoot they're very similar to the ones that Wrecker is carrying around. Yeah. So it was a very clever way of doing that, but the whole showdown, it was pretty hard because you've got these characters and they're going to try to talk to Crosshair, and he's basically like, yeah, let's kill him, like aim for the kid. Mm-hmm. And the Echo did, Tech is just basically like, hey, Echo, scomp in and do this. Yeah. And it continues to bother me that he's just kind of like,
hey, we need you.
Yeah. Just get a droid to do this so that Echo can actually, and that's the bad part, is if they didn't have, if they did have a droid doing the stuff that Echo would be doing, he would be doing nothing.
Right. So I will tell you, somebody mentioned earlier, will R2-D2 save the galaxy a number? And I get that, but when they use R2-D2 as R2-D2, it fits into my head, and I enjoy it, and I think that's appropriate. But we've got a storied character that's gone through hell and high water, and they're using him for his scomp link. It's a little disappointing. So and I see both sides, but I'm sorry.
And then they end up firing it because they really got no way out of the situation that they're in. So they shoot the cannon, and the canopy collapses, and it lands on Crosshair to give them some time. And now that I think about it with the voices, when Wrecker takes the two clone troopers and throws them over the edge, we do hear a D. Bradley Baker clone scream. So those two at least were clones. It was very close to a Wilhelm scream, but I feel bad for laughing because those two clones just died. Like, Wrecker just threw them off the side of a Venator, and I laughed. I was like, how terrible am I? I was like, yeah. But and then they get time to escape, and they're like, well, we need to figure out another way off this ship. And I don't know if Bailey wants that next, or
well, really quick. I just want to do it real quick. I just want to say there's Scuba Pete.
Hey, Pete.
We love us some Scuba Pete around here. There's Collecting Star Wars. Dropped by real quick. Good to see you. I don't know if he's obviously talking about you two, not me. That's for sure. And I'm going to put this up because otherwise Left Coast is just going to keep saying it. He seems to think she is the kill switch. He's just figured it out, and they're going to have to rescue her from Camino. So I've seen a lot of speculation that Boba and Fennec actually turned to our side in this show. So that'll be interesting to see. And then let me make sure I haven't missed anything else. Oh, yeah. Scuba. We're going to get to that. That's going to be awesome. I'm not looking at the comments. Yeah. No, it's fine. He's got a hilarious point here. Cannons are the cannons. Yeah, there you go, Brandon. The cannons are they're cannons. So absolutely. And we're getting a lot of what I call spoiler alerts going here, but we're going to get to that. As a matter of fact, we'll get to that. So I'm going to throw in this one thing, and then Bailey, you're up in a second here. I love how they showed in an animated show the sheer grand scale and scope of these shows, because they realized, well, the only way out, excuse my language, the only way out is we have to go through an engine, which already made me pucker up a little, like, oh. And sure enough, as you guys mentioned, Crosshair's not an idiot, and he figures out what they're doing, and I'll leave it. What happens from there, Bailey?
Well, okay, so you know how you guys were just laughing about two clones. I guess this is the part that made me laugh. And I felt because if you got crispy in the face, you wouldn't feel very good. But I just thought of like, hey, maybe that's like a Star Wars trope. You betray your brethren, you get crispy, just like Anakin on Mustafar. You betray everyone, you get crispy. Now so that's the part that made me laugh. And, like the fact that he's just been such a evil person that it was just like, good. Maybe you do deserve to get your face burnt off. I don't know. But I say that jokingly. I think it's, to me, this was, as much as that would suck, I do appreciate when you see, like, a villain that seems invincible get stopped, knocked down a peg. Same with the heroes. Like, I do like seeing that exchange because then it makes any future altercations more satisfying. Like, at this point, the crispy fats and many abilities that someone call unnatural.
So, first of all, everybody agrees with you,
That's
Bailey.
how they describe the dark side.
But
It
that's the
will
best
mess
one.
you up. Like, it's
That's
an
the
easy
best
path,
one.
but you will get messed up.
Well,
Like what Maul got off. I mean, you go down this path, you're not going to look the same. You won't.
God.
But that is funny. Yeah. So basically, what happens is
Daddy Chris.
that's funny. I know.
It's not funny, Dale.
I know, but it's just like, okay, this is becoming a pattern now. You're a betrayer, you get burned, literally.
Oh.
But anyway, so they're in this impossible situation where this is kind of like their only way out. But you got all these cannons that they know are very dangerous and will burn your face off. But Crosshair's like, no, like we gotta like kill him. Like he's like very like adamant, and that's another reason why I think this is kind of funny is because he's just like, no, like he, I'm right. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna get these guys, but he's the one that ends up getting hurt. So he's telling his crew to turn on these engines, and he gets burned in the face really bad, and that's how the Bad Batch is able to escape. But yeah,
well, they get separated. Yeah, so some of them escape, and then a couple of them make it back to the ship, which is where they're trying to go. And really quick, Mogu, I forgot to say hi to you, but we didn't even bother talking about toothpicks this week because
it does come up though.
Yeah. So
twice
because
we're episode.
Yes, yeah, because everybody all of a sudden has toothpicks in the Star Wars universe, and we're going to get to the main toothpick holder. But you know what? These guys with Bailey, everybody's scolding you or scalding you. See what I did there?
That's okay. I live in Arizona. I'm already on fire. Okay.
But here's the thing: they all agree with you. Look at Scuba. It's a hot topic. Yeah. You know what? No, actually, Chris, it's a burning issue.
It is a burning issue. You know what? That's what you get. That was
just look at Steve. And then Gilster just keeps it real.
It's amazing that guy was able to walk and talk after that because I'm sorry, if you get burns to your face, you are out. I'm amazed he was alive. I'm amazed he can see. Like,
Yeah, a plasma engine just went off in his face and he's still moving about. So in all seriousness, although they didn't have anywhere near the depth of an exchange like this scene reminded me of a movie called The Hunt for Red October. Do you guys remember that? And one of the guys that's in the Marvel Universe now plays the captain of a Russian vessel. He's the scientist in the Marvel Universe now that gets kidnapped by Loki. I can't think of his name. Anyway, he's just absolutely relentless, and he comes up on the protagonist, and he's in the submarine, and they're in the submarine, and he shoots a missile at him, and they turn into it, and it blows up. It just breaks the missile apart before it can armed, or a torpedo. So he's like, undo the safeties and fire. And his first officer's like, whoa, hold on, and he's like, just do it, and he does it, and then sure enough, the missile or comes back around towards them, the torpedo. And right before the bad guy's ship blows itself up, the first officer looks at who would be Crosshair and goes, "You arrogant ass, you've killed us." Yeah, and that's what that reminded me of because that's one of my favorite scenes in a movie too. Yeah, see, Scuba knows, "You arrogant ass, you've killed us." Yeah. Oh, check it out. What up, Tez?
Hey, Tez.
Like 3 a.m. in the United Kingdom.
I think he was going to bed during my last stream.
Ewok
back
is
up.
for you.
Yeah. In Star Wars, the bad guys wear the scars of the consequences on the outside. The good guys wear them on the inside. Bailey, please touch on that real fast. Man, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I could have put that any better, but it is so true. And I think that is something they definitely have shown between our villains and our heroes is that, you know, and that's one of the things I really like about Star Wars is it's all about choices and it's all about accountability. And if you make a bad choice, you got to suffer the consequences. So Crosshair being a little arrogant and maybe a little, he jumped the gun big time. And guess what? You suffer the consequences. Anakin underestimating the high ground. He lost 3 limbs and got burned alive. You know, like it is definitely a reoccurring theme where the good guys are the ones that have to learn to let go, move forward from everything that they've gone through. So yeah, collecting Star Wars, that was right on the money. I don't think I could have described that any better. That was like the best quote. Like if you had to describe Star Wars, like the difference between good and evil in this universe, there's that quote right there. Yeah. Always suffer the physical consequences.
Mm-hmm. So up to this point, I think you guys have done a great job of hitting some of the high points, noticing some of the details, and it's doing a really good job giving us a good overview and some good opinions on this. So I'm not gonna make you wait any longer. And just by sheer virtue or sheer Brandon happens to be up on this one, so he gets the honor. Speaking of toothpicks, the group gets broken in half. Hunter and Omega head back to the ship. And ladies and gentlemen, Brandon, take it from here.
Oh my God. It was so awesome. I am a big proponent of like make Solo 2 happen, but also bring Cad Bane back. I was hoping that in some way they would bring Cad Bane back for Book of Boba Fett, which this makes me even want it more. But I love the Eastwood vibes of Cad Bane, and they find a clone trooper that's dead, and they're like there's no blaster marks, like somebody's done some work, and you get that gravelly voice that like it wasn't much work, like it was so cool, and I was like immediately I was like, oh my God, yes. I was like when because they said bounty hunters earlier in the episode, and I was like, okay, we're gonna get one of maybe one of the other ones. I was like, maybe we'll see a younger Boba, but oh my goodness, when I heard that voice, I was like, yes, he's still around. And I don't know if you have seen it, but the unfinished episodes, there was originally supposed to be a duel between Cad Bane and Boba Fett, where Boba Fett, that's where he gets the ding in his helmet, is from Cad Bane shooting him in the head, but then Boba shoots Cad Bane and kills him.
Well, while we're on that, Brandon, really quick, I'll be honest with you. I'd never seen any of his episodes, and you're going to explain that to us in a second here. I don't really care anything about, but even when I saw him, I was like, oh, hell yeah, it's Cad Bane. And then it just got better from there. But give us a real quick history lesson. Who is this guy? Yeah,
so he's a bounty hunter that we see early on in the Clone Wars. He's basically hired for every other job in the show. There's a point where he, as you can see, he captures Ahsoka. He steals a holocron from the Jedi Temple and is trying to get it for the Sith that has all of basically the holocron from Jedi Fallen Order that has the list of the Force sensitive children. So he steals that from the Jedi Temple and is trying to get that for Count Dooku. And there's another point where he kidnaps Chancellor Palpatine, and there's a big espionage type episode where they're all in like active camouflage as the blue the Naboo royal guards, basically.
Oh, okay.
The blue versions of the red ones that we see later. And then I think one of my favorite arcs in the Clone Wars with Cad Bane is all of these bounty hunters get brought in, and Obi-Wan actually pretends to die. they set it up where he dies, and he does like an active camouflage where they change his face and stuff like that, and he's bald, and he actually goes and pretends to be a bounty hunter, and there's this like 3 or 4 episode arc where it's Cad Bane, the Obi-Wan character, and a couple other bounty hunters, Bosk. So that's very interesting. If you haven't seen those, I definitely recommend them. But Cad Bane is always the go-to bounty hunter in the Clone Wars for this stuff. Like, you see young Boba, you see some of that stuff, but Cad Bane really is the bounty hunter that, I mean, there's a reason why they gave him a Black Series figure, and obviously a reason why they brought him back in this series. He is just so badass. Like, the whole like space opera and then Star Wars having Western influences, this, like, it's Clint Eastwood. He is Clint Eastwood.
And Nico Morioni on animation. Yep.
Yeah, and it is so cool. And basically Hunter's like, you know, we don't have to do this. Who hired you? And he's like, that's confidential. And he's like, this, you know, this isn't going to go well for you. And he's like, oh, we'll see. And then they have their little standoff moment, which is, I was watching a channel that actually had the 2 animations side by side, and they just animated Hunter over Boba in this scene. So it's this is pretty much the same scene that we see in the unfinished episodes where it's Boba versus Cad Bane, and Boba ends up killing Cad Bane in that, but that's no longer canon. And that's where they were trying to work it in, where Boba Fett got his dent. Yeah. So that, I just thought that was a really cool Easter egg that they had that scene, that little storyboard play out in this episode. And, you know, I was pretty concerned for Hunter because he went down like a ton of bricks.
So we're gonna get to that, but I was shocked as well, Brand. I'm like, wow, that wasn't even close. But I want to shift it over to Bailey because she's up there. She's been patient. I know she has something she wants to say about this. Plus, Brandon, I know you need to take a drink of water and wipe off your brow there because you're sweaty happy, my brother, like I was.
Oh, I was so happy. Oh my God.
Bailey, tell me what went through your mind when you saw this guy and heard his voice.
Oh, I mean, I'm with Brandon, where this guy shows up and he's such a badass character. I mean, he was a character like in the Clone Wars where you can't hate him because he's so good at what he does. And like, he was the guy. Like, Palpatine would not want any other bounty hunter because this guy is that good. So I knew right off the bat, like when I saw that it was him, I was like, yeah, Hunter's not going to win because Cad Bane doesn't lose. Like, that's like the thing. He just doesn't. And so that was not a surprise to me at all. But I loved it, and I just kind of hope that this doesn't become a cameo of the week where we only see him like Fennec Shan like one episode and that's it. But no, I was just as excited. I was like, oh my God, Cad Bane. Like, I was not expecting that at all. When I heard Bounty Hunter, I was like, oh, it's probably going to be Fennec or maybe like Boba or something. But Cad Bane, it's like, oh wow, they didn't mess around. So like the Kaminoans like paid top dollar. That just shows how serious they are about getting Omega, because it's like Cad Bane is like the guy you go to if you want a job done, like, successfly. So, like, you know, sneaking into the Jedi Temple to get a holocron, that's not an easy thing to do, but Cad Bane can do it. So, the moment he was on screen, I was like, yeah, Hunter's going down, and you can pretty much see how the episode's going to end just right away, because he's that good.
That is shocking to hear to me, because I knew he was a badass. I mean, as Brandon put, he got his own Black Series figure, and collectors know, for the most part, if you get a figure, should be fairly important, especially the Black Series. And so I was like, wow, this is where Cad Bane's arc comes to an end. And then this happens. And like, I remember when I was a kid watching the old Clint Eastwood movies. And Nico Morioni is the name of that spaghetti Western guy, and everything, the music, the voice, everything. Brandon, back to you. Talk to me about this showdown, please. This was awesome.
It's the perfect standoff. You got like you can hear his spurs when he walks and stuff like that. And they both got their trigger fingers ready, and they're like, ooh, and like you're like getting closer to the screen as it's happening, and you know it. Like Bailey said, I knew what was going to happen. Like, I knew Hunter was going down. Like, they wouldn't bring in the they wouldn't bring in the smoking gun to not have yeah. But and let me just say, I thought they did the perfect thing, because they shoot and you obviously tell that Hunter gets hit, but then Toto gets hit and he's like, oh no, my repulsor. And I was so worried about Hunter. I was like, why would they make a joke during this? But now I go back and I laugh. Like, I've watched it so many times now, and it's so tense, and they did such a good job with it, and I loved it, every second of it.
Bailey, do you like the showdowns part of this?
Oh yeah, this was probably like my favorite part of the whole episode, is just this little showdown, because it just goes to show, like, you don't need a long drawn out fight scene for it to be good. It was to the point. We knew Hunter was going down. I'm pretty sure if he wasn't wearing armor, that would have been the end of it, but Hunter is also wearing literal plot armor, so I know he's not going to get killed. I knew he was going to go down, but he was not going to die. But no, this was just so entertaining to watch. It's definitely a scene I would watch over and over, because it's just so cool, and it's like, it just reminds you of those Westerns, and that's just what I love about Star Wars, is there's so many genres going on, and it's just so satisfying. It was a very satisfying scene, and it's probably one of my favorite moments in the show so far. I liked it.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. When it first started off, I thought I was starting to get a little bit of cheese. I'm like, wow, they're really overdoing it with the spaghetti Western music and everything. But then, once I got my head in the right space, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've seen in this show yet, as far as battles are concerned. So, I have a question for you, Brandon, but G-Force has a question too.
Yeah. I was gonna grab them, and I was gonna put put one in my mouth when we were talking about Crosshairs, and then put one in my mouth when we were talking about Cad Bane.
You should have done it. That was awesome.
I was going to, but we were talking about stuff before the show, and next time, if we see a toothpick again, there will be let's just say Crosshair might be uncomfortable with anything sitting on his lips for the foreseeable future.
Well, he is extra crispy now, as Scuba put it out. So, John, excellent. Cad was an excellent choice. Cad never even showed up in my brain, and when I saw him, I got giddy, and I don't even know that much about him. And you guys know more. Like, he's a badass. And then, do you think Cad Bane has been chewing the same toothpick, or is it a new one?
Oh, it's the same one.
Yeah, it's got to be the same one. Yeah. Right? Oh, yeah. And then David, the droid was definitely Tuco, brother. Speaking of the droid, that's what I wanted to ask you. Brandon, what is this droid's name again, and what the heck?
Toto 360. And he
360.
he oh my god, he reminds me so much of like a happier, cheerier version of
Great, yeah, no doubt. But a happier, cheerier version. I'm sorry, go.
Yeah, of just his delivery of lines of the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it. Oh my goodness, I just love it, and it cracks me up now just thinking about my repulsor. Like, it's like you're a robot. You're fine.
Right. Bailey, did this detract from this scene for you, or did that extra little bit of levity help it out?
No, I think it was fine. It wasn't cheesy. It was just very, I don't know. It was just a good scene. It was they got something right, this writing team, and that was one of them.
Good. I thought it was fun. I'm not gonna lie. When he went down, he was like, basically, oh, my ankle, and like, well, that guy's dead. So yeah, what do you know? And you're a robot. So, oh man, that's funny. Damn it, 8 people just walked in with beer and Boone's Farm. I can't hear a thing. Poor David's trying to work, apparently, or something, I'm guessing. So no problem at all, David. It's good to have you no matter what. Oh, and really quick, Bailey, he's glad you're feeling better. So
thank you.
Yeah. So I thought that was it. I keep falling for this, Brandon, because last time I thought we were going to lose Wrecker. Omega was just going to blast him. And I'm like, oh, this blue foal just killed Hunter. I mean, because he hasn't been part of much lately. So I'm thinking, well, that's it. And then, of course, he goes the classic from A New Hope. The 3-ring coming out of your gun knocks you unconscious. The stun setting, as you guys put it. Yeah. And down goes Omega. And then we got something that Brandon, I hate to keep picking on you, but I'm fairly certain, but I might be wrong. I might be stereotyping here, Bailey, but I know Brandon for sure plays the video games. The rest of the Bad Batch show up and they do a rescue thing, but this is our perspective. Talk a little bit about this, Brandon.
Oh, it's so cool. And like the sound effects and the layout of it all, it's a callback to Republic Commando, which I started replaying and I've only played it, once for like 2 hours, but it is so cool because they were obviously the Clone Force 99. They heavily use the ideas from the Republic Commando game to make these characters, and just getting a perspective of what's going on in their helmets. Because like you can't look at this and say, it would be better if they didn't wear a helmet. Like, especially Hunter, you're telling me that he's able to do everything that he does with that helmet on. Like, it's so like narrowed and everything, but I thought it was so cool because you didn't see them just help Hunter to the ship. Like you're feeling helpless along with this. And I like when they do camera stuff like this, where it's point of view and it's you can hear them breathing and you can see everything shaking and everything's going on, because it really does make you feel helpless. So I thought they did a really cool thing, while also throwing in, the Easter egg to the Republic Commando.
Bailey, what do you think about them doing like the first person on this and kind of keeping us disoriented?
Oh, no, I think it's great. I think from a narrative standpoint, you want to do that. You want to do that every so often so that you can, like, if you're not like feeling as connected to a character, that's where something like this becomes handy, where you can be like, oh, okay, now I am starting to feel sorry for this guy because he's kind of freaking out that he just lost the one thing that they've been trying to protect. So no, I think it's great, and especially when it's a callback to something like a game that a lot of fans like, I think that's wonderful. I think it's always good to put those references in, because it's all about that engagement piece that I've been preaching forever. You want to keep the people engaged, and this would be a component to that. So yeah, I think it's great. I think they do need to do that, because make sure you're watching the screen, so you're not like, okay.
I'm gonna check my phone. So
yeah,
for the old guys in chat, we'll remember this: the original RoboCop movie. He was dead last time he knows anything, and they do the same thing, first person perspective, turning on RoboCop's visor, and it's really jarring and disconcerting at first, and really helps you get into the fact that now Murphy is all messed up and has no idea what's going on, just like Hunter here. So I thought this was awesome, and I got a kick out of it. I did not get the video game reference until Brandon brought it up with me. I was like, oh, that's really cool. So Linda asked the question that I want to go over, you guys, and I'll bring up the picture if we have to. Does it look like to you that Cad Bane is wearing armor pieces? And I apologize, both the pictures I have of him, I don't know how helpful they're going to be. Let me pull up this one. She's saying it looks like he's got armor pieces on. Are you guys seeing that in any fashion, or is that what he's supposed to be wearing normally?
It looks different.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, given that we're coming from the Clone Wars and this guy has fought everything from Jedi to, I would not be surprised. This guy is good. So yeah, he's going to dress for the job. So I would not be surprised.
Yeah, you do see shoulder pauldrons, and it looks like he's got wrist guards on, but he had some sort of that in the Clone Wars as well. It does look like he has like metallic knee pads, but his outfit is definitely different than when we see him in the Clone Wars. We talked about it a little bit pre-show, but his hat has changed sizes dramatically. It's no longer a shade hat.
No shade.
Yeah. And the stuff on his torso is different as well.
Okay, so that's from a narrative standpoint or a storytelling standpoint, it's good to see that they didn't just pull out the old animation of Cad Bane, polish it up a little bit, and stick it in here. They thought since that time he's obviously evolved a little bit. He's got this and put that on, and so that's really cool. And that was that's a great catch, Linda. I'm not going to lie, I didn't even I would not have even thought of that. And then there you go. RoboCop, man. Oh yeah, I was like hitting it with the old school guys on the RoboCop one. So, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. New look means yeah. Then there's that Left Coast, the Eternal Pragmatist. Yes, Cad Bane looks different now. You guys can get 2 or 3 more versions of him in the Black Series, Brandon.
Yeah, we'll get him in a Bad Batch now.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Too bad the pre-orders will be exclusives. and I won't be able to order it, even though I was on time and had it in my cart. I'm not bitter.
Fair enough. So I'm going to go off on a quick tangent here, you two, because last episode I said I would pay upwards of $100 for a Bad Batch pack. Remember that, Brad? Remember we talking about that? And I had no idea. Now, it wasn't exactly what I described. It was actually better. It was 4 of these cool clones that come in all their own cards on the vintage collection, and they came in one big box also. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I was like, that's from my mouth to God's ears, like my mom used to say. And there it is. And it's an Amazon exclusive. And it was sold out in 13 seconds.
God.
Yeah. So I feel you, Brandon. I feel you. So we're gonna commiserate one of these days over some beers at a convention together and just hug it out. So I feel you, man. So with that, they managed to get back on the ship, and they haul butt out of there because Crosshair and his clones, well, not Crosshair, but his clones have chased them down and they're shooting at him. And that's pretty much the end of the episode. And so a lot of fun. They did a great job. You guys pointed out some awesome stuff. But I want to get into, like we normally do every week. But before I do, I would like to do my little housekeeping thing. As you guys are well aware, if I can get my computer to work. There we go. For those of you in the chat and for those of you watching on the rewind, you've been watching the Bad Batch Breakdown with Brandon and Bailey. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, the comments have been awesome, entertaining, and so much help. We're here every Saturday, 6 p.m., 9 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to continue to do this until everybody's sick of us, we're sick of it, or the Bad Batch show ends. And I think it's going to be the third, just so you know, because I'm having a blast. But with that, guys, I'm looking forward to some positivity, but don't lie to me either. Scale of 1 to 10. Where's this one land on that scale for you, Bailey?
7. My feelings are pretty much the same as the last one for similar reasons, but I will say that that whole showdown in the very end was very enjoyable for me. So I would say a 7.
Perfect. And it's already started in the comments, Linda. I'm going to get to yours in a second, but if you're with us right now, I would love it if you just took a second to throw your number 1 to 10 for this episode specific, so we can get an idea of what you thought of it. But Brandon, you're up, brother. Where you at?
You know, it was going along this episode, and last episode I said it was a 9 because it was my favorite episode so far. But I was going to rate this one about an 8, and then I heard the voice and saw the standoff, and that immediately I'm going 9 2 weeks in a row. It was, oh my goodness, like I loved it. So
Brandon, are you having fun on the show now, or with the Bad Batch show now? Yeah. It's always been fun, but it's getting fun now, right?
Yeah. Okay. These 3 weeks, like I said last week with you, I said this is, with the stuff with Rex and some of the more emotional stuff. That's what I wanted this show to be. That's what if each week had things like that, it would be so good. And now we're getting to the point where we are getting little snippets like that, and we got Cad Bane. So I will not complain right now.
And I will tell you, and this is not a dig on Bailey, she gave one of these episodes a 3. So if you get a 7 out of Bailey, you are just about knocking it out of the park. You just really got to. Echo's going to have to get involved if you're going to get higher than an 8 for Bailey. Am I right, Bailey?
Seriously, yeah, amongst other things, but yes.
Right. That's one of the key factors. Am I right?
Oh yeah. Like I'm tired of seeing these clones that we're already familiar with just being cast off to the side. I don't get it, but
fair enough. I don't disagree with you. Echo, I think they're doing Echo a disservice right now, and I'm praying. I'm not too worried about Tech. I just think he's brain damaged. But Echo, I really would like to see them bring him into the forefront and give us. There is so much emotional weight that can come from that character. But so there's Linda. She's got it at a 9. We're moving up, guys. Check out collecting. What a perfect Tizian up in here. Wow. That's what I'm talking about. 2 thumbs up and 2 eyeballs wide open. Dilster at a 9. All right. That's good to see. John says good action and intrigue. I would agree with you. The action on this one was not as like that. What did we have with Fennec Shan, the chase through the through Coruscant thing? I'm like, oh, this is ridiculously predictable. It's not even fun. This action on that Venator was much more fun. So he gives it a 9. Left Coast is at an 8. Good to hear.
And for me, it wasn't even the action. It was like them thinking they were doing what they were supposed to do and finding a way out. And then it was like, oh, they know what we're doing. And it was like there was so much tension that each time that built up with it.
So having grown up with the Stormtroopers, I was very happy to see Crosshair be a competent villain. Yeah, I know you're listening to our comms. Yeah, I know you're going to try to come out the engine. Every time he had him, there was, it was only through his own arrogance. You arrogant ass, you killed us. Then he got himself crispy. So,
yep.
Chris at a 9. Look at that. Wow, we're going to town here. G-Force at a 8. And 8.5, and looking up, JT, that's an excellent way to put that. Strong 8 from Mogu. Thank you very much. Blitz, it's an 8 for me. Super entertaining. I'm excited for what comes next. You know what? I tell you, and Bailey, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And we're going to talk about what was good and what was bad. It was a haul there for a few episodes. Okay, and we're great Star Wars fans and we love it. But this is a critique show, and so we kept it real. And we even had some, I talked about last week, we had some heart-to-heart among the three of us to make sure, we weren't getting jaded. And then they give us last episode. And then they give us this episode. Are you worried that next episode is going to let us down?
I don't want it. I just, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday where it was like, I'm very neutral, like when it comes to this show. Like on Fridays, like of course I'm looking forward to seeing like new Star Wars content, but it's not like, it wasn't like The Mandalorian where it was like, I cannot wait for work to be done. I need to watch this episode, and it just kind of blows my mind. Where this, I'm still like not feeling that as much. It's getting better, okay? Like that, don't burn me, y'all. Like, but it's like the momentum is picking up. But I'm still like just very like, I go in completely neutral. I don't know what to expect. And the reason why, maybe I could save this for later, but the reason why I say 7 is because I'm seeing the exact same things that kind of weighted down. Like the ending to me, I was like, oh no, it's the Mandalorian again. Oh, the kid got captured. Oh, let me guess, she's going to get rescued in the next one, right? Like, just like, it's little things like that where it's like I'm seeing, or like cameo of the week. I love Cad Bane, but it's like, I don't want this you see a lot of the same formula, and I think that's what's keeping me from going anything above a 7, is because things are picking up. The pacing's good. There's more action. I love seeing like callbacks to the Clone Wars and whatnot, but I'm still seeing some of the same things that I'm like, I've seen this before. Like when Cad Bane showed up, I knew exactly what was going to happen. He's going to go down, the kid's going to be gone, and that's how the episode's going to end. I've seen that before. And that was something I've said quite a few times in the earlier ones where we were going through that lull, is like, I feel like this is kind of like the Mandalorian reskinned, or they feel very comfortable with that formula that they're going to start translating that into their newer projects, which it's not a bad formula, but it's like, I don't know. It's just like, I'm still waiting to be like overwhelmed or really surprised by something, and that hasn't happened yet. So that's why I'm still sitting at that 7, is because little things like Echo being sidelined, or other clones, like, like even like with Rex, it was like we saw that no interaction between him and Echo, like just little things like that is what keeps me from going above that threshold of a 7. It's entertaining to watch. Don't get me wrong, guys. It is entertaining to watch, but it's like there are just little things where I'm like, yep, I've seen that before. I know, yep, that's going to happen. And that's why. Yeah,
no, that makes sense.
I haven't seen anything that where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed, or like, wow, they really blew it out of the water for me, because it's like, it's still kind of like the same stuff. Like I have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen.
Right. So we actually kind of jumped ahead a little bit there, but that's not a problem. And I understand what you're saying, because I was going to talk about, hey, we also predicted this last week. Baby Grogu, Omega, Brandon specifically said is going to get picked up this episode, if not next episode, and have to be rescued. So what I hear you saying, Bailey, is it's a great show, but they're missing some opportunities, specifically with Rex, and it's a little too formulaic, but still entertaining. Okay. Yes. Brandon, with this last 2 episode high, like I said, I'm not sure if it's because the other ones were so terrible. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Are you worried about next episode, or how are you going into watching the next one?
I think that they had a hard time I went back and I watched them all this morning. And you can tell that they were just like, okay, you can almost see their thinking process of how are we going to get it to a point where it's not just going to be breakneck speed. And I'm thinking that those 3 or 4 episodes that were really slow was the way to introduce stuff, even though not much got introduced or built upon in those 4 episodes. I think I did see that 4 of the next episode titles got leaked. I don't remember what they are. Okay. And I tried not to look, but I looked.
Okay.
But
don't say I'm here. Yeah, we're not a big show.
I'm not going to. But
perfect.
Part of me, after having this be so exciting, it's like, please don't stomp on the brakes right now.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm gonna say I don't see that happening. I think with the way things are going, I am still not sure if this is going to be a multiple season or a 1 season thing. 1000th Ghost Chris keeps talking to me and he's like, I think it's going to be a multiple season thing. I still am not sure. I honestly, depending on what happens in the next couple episodes, they could wrap things up and it could be a 1 season thing where they close all the loose ends of who is Omega, the transition from the clone troopers to the stormtroopers, and the Crosshair.
Right.
Like they already did the stuff with the chip, and I still think that this is only going to be a 1 season thing.
Me too. I agree with you. We're going to talk about what you guys thought they did well on this episode, and you're just really going to have to pick one. We'll be here for the next 3 hours, I think. But before we do that, G-Force has a question, and I'm going to go right back to you on this one, Brandon. The prevailing thought amongst everything that I see out there right now is that Omega is the next generation of clones that they were going to use to up their game to try and continue to sell clones and maintain a financial viability with the Empire. That's the prevailing wisdom at this point. Nobody's proved that yet, but I think that's right. If something happens to her, what do you think their contingency plan is, if any, Brandon?
That's why I think they brought in Cad Bane, is because they really know that this is the last chance. Because even with the Bad Batch, they're not quite sure if cloning the same stuff from them would yield similar results. But they were like, they basically made it sound like, Omega, they must have figured something out to where obviously she's a female clone. So they altered something and they were able to make it work. So now, because she's different enough, are they able to use her as a source of this DNA rather than the breaking down Jango Fett DNA? So right. That's, I honestly think that this is their, like, let's bring in the big guns, pew pew, and let's have Cad Bane bring Omega back. So I think they're setting up for the Bad Batch, and who knows, maybe they get Rex involved again, and maybe a couple other characters that we know really well too, where they're like, hey, Omega got taken, much like we saw with the Mandalorian with Grogu, where it's like, hey, we need to build a super team to get this kid back. So I'm thinking we're going to see a storm on them storming Kamino at some point to try to get her back.
So Bailey, much like you putting the dice out on the table with that Hollow being Darth Maul, you just went all in on that. Do you agree that the Kaminoans have just gone all in on Omega being their salvation, or what do you think's going on with Omega?
Absolutely. Just the fact that they hired Cad Bane. Now, I don't know if they were the ones to hire Finnick or not. Did they? But I don't know. Just the fact that they got Cad Bane just shows that, like, they are serious. Like, they want her back. They need her back. And as we saw, Cad Bane was successful. So it makes perfect sense, because from the beginning of the show, it made it very clear that the Kaminoans were afraid of what their future would look like. And it was, as Dex said in episode 2, these Kaminoans love money. It's all about how big your pocketbook is. So clearly, Omega is like the key to what's coming next for them. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think it's interesting how we brought up that maybe there's going to be this huge raid on Kamino and all these people. That would be the perfect time to surprise me, because like that's in my head too. Like, okay, so if I look back on The Mandalorian, I think this is what's going to happen next. please do something different. Like, please, like we can have the raid, but it's just like I want to be surprised, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I really hope that becomes the case.
Well, speaking of that, Bailey, JT has a good point here. He doesn't look at the show as being predictable. He's looking at like the show makers are obviously watching the two of you guys, and they're in the chat. And they're using your ideas, and we're accidentally predicting our own show. Is what the problem here is. That's the deal. So, Bailey, we've talked a lot about what they did good this episode, and how we're much happier with this, but. Pick the one thing that really was the salvation of this episode to bring you back out of those dregs we've been in, because you weren't here last episode, which was a good one. But
right.
The one thing in this episode, you're like, that makes it for me.
Oh, the Cad Bane altercation. 100%. Like, that was what was like, yeah, like this episode, it was good. Was just seeing that. I would say between that and just going through the Jedi flagship, it's really just those, like I said, what's really pulling on my emotional strings of this show is the things that are happening around the Bad Batch. So it would be the Cad Bane and just seeing all these Clone Wars Easter eggs. So that is what did it for me. And
perfect.
Yeah, it was a very good scene.
I don't disagree. Let's see how much disagreement you get from Brandon. Brandon, what was the one or two things that really just got you on this episode?
It's got to be the Cad Bane thing for me. I love him, and I had such a hard time finding that figure, and I got it. Somebody sent it to me in a trade, and now knowing that we're probably going to get a Bad Batch figure with him with his updated stuff with the smaller hat is really exciting to me. Hopefully it's not an exclusive, but other than that, Hasbro, you're dead to me. Other than that, it honestly is that little exchange between Hunter and Echo, where it's why didn't we just go with Rex? Like, why couldn't we do what he's going on? And he's like, he's on a different path. And Rex is still very much tied into saving the Republic in what he remembers of it. And Hunter is like, we got to protect the kid and we have to disappear type, mindset. And, and you're like, oh, that really makes sense. And then Echo drops we're soldiers. What other path is there? Like, they're still going to do what they believe is right. And they're still going to try to help people. So it honestly, that was a pretty good little exchange, and I'm so glad that it was included in the episode. And that's moments like that are what really make the episodes for me.
Yeah, the motivations of these characters and why they make the decisions they do, I think is important for sure. Brandon, we're gonna stick with you, and then we'll go back to Bailey. What's one thing they could have done? Just one thing to improve this episode and make it a 10 for you.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah, as
and I have an answer for this myself, but it's a very repetitive answer. It's the same thing I've been saying. So if that's your answer too, and you're worried about saying it, don't.
No, and I think they could do the relationships a little bit better between some of the clones, and we need to see more Echo. And
there you go.
Yeah. So I don't know. I will go with something different, and it's I still want to see the clone troopers, like, they did a good job with it, but make them seem like more of a threat too. Like, as much as, Star Wars always does a good job of, like, the stormtroopers not hitting things and bonking their heads on doorways and stuff. Like, there were some times where the engine starts roaring up and you're like, oh, like, I know they have the bombs, but like they're pinned down and I wonder how this is going to go. But it sometimes it would be nice to have these clones be a threat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The showdown in the artillery bay was a perfect example of that. I mean, even Omega was like, pew, pew, got you. It's like, okay. Bailey, one thing they could do to improve this episode. I think I can guess what it is, but I'd love to hear your input on that.
I'm going to the biggest thing for me that's just been driving me nuts is definitely the whole relationship aspect. And really getting me invested in these new characters. Because, like I've been saying, it's the stuff that's happening around these characters that are having my interest more. And I feel like any opportunity we've seen where I can like really, really build an interest with these characters, like that conversation about the Clone Wars between Tech and Omega, that was just like threw it in the garbage. That is a huge missed opportunity. And, I get like, and I saw that quite a bit in the comments, like, yeah, I get like, really intelligent people may not have the social skills, but then my question would be like, then why would they choose Tech to be the one in the room then? They could have had a different character have that conversation, or if Omega wants to connect with Tech, maybe they don't start with a philosophical question like that. Like maybe have like a more direct one that doesn't involve like touchy-feely feelings or anything like that. Right. So that's like my biggest thing. The show is like, I really wish we had more of those moments, kind of like what Brandon was saying, like that one between Echo and Hunter. Like, I want to see more of that because I feel like we're in an era where so much has happened, but none of these conversations are happening. And or if they are, they're just not. It's not being executed well. So that's the thing, is like the big just relationship thing. And then just like, the thing that's been kind of driving me nuts is the big distinction between Bad Batch and they're referring to other clones as regs, which was not a term used in the Clone Wars. Like everyone was like the same. And like they like really made that distinction of like, yeah, they're not one of us, even though they have the same DNA. There's just like, like, you know what I mean? It's just like, well, you are the same person. You just have different abilities. And it's like, when Crosshair and his team are coming, they're only trying to connect with him where they could easily, like they all have that chip in their head. So I don't know. It's just little things like that I don't really understand. And just, poor Echo. Like honestly, like if I was Echo and I was, I went to hell and back and I got rescued and I had this second chance of life and all I was used for was to do data entry or something, I think I would rather die. Like, to be honest.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
But that's the only thing. It's like, I just kind of wish we would progress more in that. And then just the repetition thing where it's like, I know what's going to happen. Omega's going to get captured. They're going to rescue the kid. Like, I've seen this before. Like, just, so that repetition and just, like, I really wish we would just see these relationships grow. But I think part of the problem is there's so much going on in 25 minutes that they can't do that. So.
Yeah. G-Force just mentioned that. I'm a little shocked, and I hate to make the comparison, but the first 2 episodes of Loki have both been an hour long. And that's live action people and special effects. Whereas with animation, theoretically, you could do whatever, it's still just computer animation, but these are only like 25 minutes long. So I was expecting them to be longer, but at the end of the day, as the 3 of us have said before, this is a critique show. We're always going to pull up and talk about what we think they could do better. But at the end of the day, it's Star Wars and we're happy to have it for sure. So you guys, I kind of jumped ahead and we did theories and predictions earlier because I asked you about the next episode. So we're going to start winding things down here. But really quick, once again, this has been the Bad Batch Breakdown with Brandon and Bailey here every Saturday, 6 p.m., 9 p.m. Eastern. As always, those of you who joined us, and especially if you've been with us the whole time in the comments, greatly appreciate it. The comments make this show, especially for me, because I get a kick out of throwing stuff at these two. And if you're watching us on the rewind, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Make sure if you have any questions, comments that you want us to go over in the next episode, throw those down below. Or if you have multiple comments, Matt, I'll pick one of them and we'll talk about that. But before we get up on out of here, Brandon, back to you. It's always a pleasure to see him, and I look forward to these every week. And thanks for continuing to be a part of the show. I know you're a busy man; you got a lot of stuff going on. But with that, did I miss anything?
No, I love it, and I think you're doing a great job. Orchestrating the whole thing, pulling the strings the whole time. I love it. I love being able to sit down and talk Bad Batch with you too, and everybody in the chat too. sometimes they mention things that I didn't even think about, and it really does sometimes. It's like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. So we do appreciate it.
Fair enough. Bailey, I'm so glad that you're getting healthier. I hope that continues on that upward trajectory. And it was exciting and fun to have you back. Like I said, I had a blast with Brandon last week, but man, I just rather would sit back here and push buttons and throw some stuff in and let you do the heavy lifting. Did I miss anything, ma'am?
Absolutely not. And once again, guys, and I said this pretty early on in the show, but in case you showed up later, I just have to say I was so deeply touched and flattered when I would check into last week's stream, or I watched it on the rewind, and just seeing you guys, send your well wishes and just being so kind. Like that's amazing. Like, you guys don't know me like as a person, and you care enough to give your well wishes, and that's amazing. So thank you so much. And I couldn't be more proud of these two men. It was like just amazing. Like, I had so much fun just watching the two of them talk, and it's just like I get to be a part of that, so I just feel extremely lucky just to be a part of this community, to be able to talk about Star Wars with these two. They're amazing, and it was great to just see that support. And so I can't thank you all enough. Thank you so much. Like, it means the world. So thank you. I
am privileged to be a part of this with you two guys. And I say that with sincerity, but also to be a part of, we are starting to see, as you guys have noticed, the same core group of people show up to watch our goofy butts talk about an animated kids show. And that right there is the very definition of why we do this. And I think why we're part of this community. So I couldn't have put it any better, Bailey. It didn't shock me one bit to see the well-wishers saying, that they were hoping that you got better, because that's the group of people that we run with here. And I think, JT, I believe that that's an excellent way for us to wind this out of here. Great, the trio's back. Love the show. Thank you, Bailey, Brandon, Paul. Thank you to everyone in chat. JT is my second DJ. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to wind this down. And as always, you know how silly I am, Brandon. You get that look on your face like, here he goes with this thumbs up thing again. But that's how we do on here. So we're going to end it by saying, like we always do, we will see you on the next episode.